Hello and welcome to today's video. My name is Haley and we're continuing talking about the 13th gene key, listening through love, getting into the gift frequency of discernment. This chapter is titled The Fellowship of Man. Discernment emerges as your emotional nature comes more and more into awareness. So this gift naturally arises the more you tune into the present moment. If you watched the 12th gene key, A Pure Heart, you are aware that the gift frequency within that video was called discrimination, and I had actually said I prefer the word discernment. So I think it's very timely that we are now talking about discernment. And to discern, as I explained within the 12th gene key, is to have the awareness and the ability to choose what to incorporate in your life, to choose what's good for you, to choose what's loving, and then to avoid the inverse, right? To have the ability to say no to addictions that are bad for you or people that don't bring out your best and highest self. So discernment and awareness are very close cousins. You can't have one without the other. Richard Rudd identifies here that we are all so deeply ingrained in the observation of how others view us, and this informs our feelings. So whether you who's watching this or not would like to admit it, you care what people think about you. We all kind of do. And this is on a sliding scale, right? Some people give less of a fuck than others, but nonetheless, as long as you are having an ego of sorts, it is natural to have this inclination to care what others think. And this is what informs the feelings. And freedom actually could be tied to this, right? The less you care what people think, the more free you are to be who you are. And that enters you into the kingdom of authenticity. But I think it's interesting here because he says, as you come to see how deeply your view of others is connected to your feelings, as if we aren't quite yet aware. Once again, awareness being tied to discernment. So the more we recognize and admit, I do care what my mom thinks, or what my neighbor thinks, or what the industry thinks of me, or what Jenny's gonna say, whatever. The more I'm willing to become aware and admit this, now I'm inviting in this gift of discernment. You can't have one without the other. I can't choose to not give a fuck if I'm not aware that I give a fuck. It's another way to say that. And this is a bit spooky, right? Coming into admittance. Really seeing and admitting that I do care. But ironically enough, this is what invites you into freedom, into authenticity, and into discernment. Only when personal feelings are witnessed and examined can you begin to see things in more objective manners. Objective, unbiased, open, fair, neutral, open-minded, observational, taking the seat of the observer, to view something in presence as it actually is presenting itself, not as your mind would have it be so. You can only start to step into this realm of observation if you're willing to witness and examine your personal feelings. Once again, that's identifying them and being able to declare them to yourself truthfully, honestly, openly. This is what starts to get a person to graduate from the shadow frequency and into the gift frequency, from discord to discernment. And within the discord shadow, we talked a lot about listening. Richard Rudd starts to tie that back into this discernment gift frequency chapter by saying that in becoming more clear about how you actually feel and being honest with that, not only are you graduating into more authenticity, that's also opening the avenue for you to have the capacity to listen more. The difference between hearing and listening, which we went over in past videos, has to do with awareness. Awareness, the first step, awareness, is in this admitting out loud to yourself, in being truthful with how you actually feel, even if those feelings are scary. And maybe kind of feeling the shame or the guilt that come with some of these emotions. So this is actually allowing you to listen to others more than before you were able to admit that. So this is really powerful because, once again, the difference between listening and hearing is you can hear something, but to really listen implies that not only do you hear it, but it also moves and motivates you into action. Simple example of that being, I can hear my boyfriend tell me that he really wants pizza for dinner. I'm like, yeah, that's great. And if I really listen to him, I'll be motivated to make him a pizza or go get pizza, right? It'll move us into a trajectory that aligns with how he feels. So this ability to listen is important because it helps you be of service to yourself and to others, which is the consciousness that comes from the heart. So in a nutshell, all of that, to wrap that up, because I know that was a little like, the more I become aware, the more I admit how I actually feel, even if that's a low vibrational emotion, the more capacity I have to listen. The more loving action I can take and create. That sounds nice, right? Ooh. Little bee fly landed on me. It's funny that the body just instantly flinches. So at this level of frequency, this one of discernment, you become fully aware of the desires coursing through your body. Okay, so you can become fully aware of the desire that you have to eat pizza. You can become fully aware of the desire you have to flip off that person that cut you off in traffic. You can become fully aware that you feel a bit of shame around how much chocolate you ate and you want to hide. You can become aware of the joy and the excitement moving through the body and how it makes you want to go on a run because you have so much energy. So you become aware, and this is important, of not only the higher vibrational frequencies, but also of the lower ones and how those are trying to move you into action or inaction. And this is not to say that you actually follow through with these actions or inactions, but you become aware of the impulse, I should say, the urge to move in a certain direction. And because of this awareness, you're no longer victim to them. For instance, let's just say I ate a ton of chocolate and I feel kind of, like shame. I want to hide about it. Maybe I want to throw all the chocolate I still have in the trash, whatever. Okay, if I'm actually aware of this, I don't actually have to act on that and throw it in the trash. I can say, you know what? I can start to build compassion. I did this thing. It's not making my tummy feel great. It's not making my mind feel great. I see my urge to want to escape this shame, to hide from my shame. Ironically enough, a fractal of shame. And now I can choose, instead of some big dramatic, let me throw all the chocolate away in the house, let me just sit with myself, Feel the shame come up, even though it's wildly uncomfortable. And then choose how to go moving forward. Next time I'm stressed, instead of overindulging in treats, I will maybe journal, or I'll call a friend, or I'll go on a walk, or whatever, right? So awareness invites in another way of being. And if one is brave enough to look at the impulses as they arise rather than just act on them, then you'll find that you're able to graduate yourself into a new way of being and acting in the next time this emotion rises. So that I use the example of shame because that's one that I think a lot of people feel shame for their shame, hide from their shame. But yeah, there's many ways to go about this if you walk yourself through the different ranges of emotion, which I recommend looking up the David R. Hawkins map of consciousness if you want to become aware of what those are. Super interesting scale, mapping out lower hurt frequencies all the way up to, forever. But it's super interesting to look at to see, what number is equated to what you're feeling, how much energy is available. There's a lot less energy in shame and guilt than there is in even anger, even though from an external standpoint, they all don't sound like great states of being. But anger actually has a lot more energy to it, ability to change into a higher frequency, which I find very, very interesting. So yes, in this discernment frequency, you become aware of the desires, the feelings, the emotions coursing through the body. And therefore you have the autonomy now to choose to react, or to choose to be still and observe. It's a kind of witnessing awareness. And this part's exciting. He says, as you keep elevating into more and more discernment, you also start to unlock many gifts. And this is because, I like how he says this. Instead of reacting out of your karmic library, you now begin to demystify your own past. So now you start to see a pattern instead of just random chaos. And this is one of the many gifts you receive out of being brave enough to actually observe how you feel, to actually pause, to actually look, to actually listen. Okay, so what are these gifts, Richard? Red, I want to know. What kind of gifts are going to arise out of this gift of discernment? Well, firstly, he says you'll start to view life at a mythic level. You'll see great archetypes playing out in your lives. So what does that really mean? To me, what he's trying to say is you have these special goggles you get to see life through. You start to see more beauty and more magic in the day-to-day, in the simplicity of looking at a tree as you go on a walk, as you see a drama play out within the family at Thanksgiving. You start to see these archetypes and these stories and these patterns play out. It's almost as if you have a psychic vision on. You start to see the themes for what they are. And this also can, some people call it prophetic. Really, this person is just discerning patterns and able to see them as they're playing out. Therefore, they look as if they have the gift of being prophetic, because they very much understand the patterns of the shadow frequencies and how they work. So once you stop viewing life on a subjective emotional level, a new landscape of feeling opens up inside of you. Essentially, once you stop viewing life as an ego, once you stop reacting to how you feel, Once you stop feeling shame for your shame, once you stop getting mad at your anger, right? Once you start to, instead of add more layers, peel the layers off the onion so you can see the inside of the bulb. You can see the initial root of shame, the initial root of anger. A new landscape opens up inside of you. A new vision is presented to you to see the world. More clarity and more beauty is unlocked. And this is an early manifestation of your ability to transcend your emotional system. Meaning, the next time guilt comes around, you're able to see it for what it really is. And rather than amplify it and entangle with it and drown in it, you're able to kind of hop over it like a hurdle. Like, you're like a runner. You see the guilt. You just hurdle over it. And again, that's not to say it's not there anymore. It's still on the track of your life. But you have the strength now, which is born from your awareness, your ability to admit how you feel. And that helps you move on with life. And this spurs upon optimism. He defines optimism for us. He says, optimism is the gradual swelling of awareness within your solar plexus system, which is your third energy center right below your heart. And it expands your sense of self to include a far wider reality. I've never heard optimism described in this way, as a grand swelling of awareness. But that's what it is, right? Because you who's watching this, as you've gone along your spiritual journey, as you've become more aware, okay, in addition with all the chaos you get to witness, I'm sure you've also had moments where you view nature in a way that's just so shockingly beautiful. Because this is what awareness does. It opens us up to the reality of love, as cheesy as that sounds. It lets you actually see things as they are, which is beautiful. Optimism, the grand swelling of awareness. And the second part with that definition expands your sense of self to include a far wider reality. What he's trying to say there is your perception of oneness, right? Now when I'm going on the nature walk, I feel more connected to the trees and the bees and the plants, more so than when my awareness was a bit dimmer. Part of being aware is connectedness, is oneness, is love, is beauty. So as awareness rises, so do all the facets and derivatives of awareness. And this makes me feel a far wider reality. Feel connected. So then he goes on a little woo-woo detour, as he does sometimes. And he talks about how collectively, it's just one big archetype, one big hero's journey. We all eventually need to transcend our own individual emotional traumas and then at a world level as well. And he talks about how this is stored within the DNA. And it's a natural evolution to graduate out of this and into oneness, right? Into connectedness. So the rise of awareness is part of this archetype, elevating into a consciousness where we all feel connected. Into the reality where we're all connected, I should say. That's the truth, right? That we're all one, that we're all connected. So as the awareness rises, we become aware of the truth. he notes how you can reference these myths and fairy tales because they contain alchemical codes of evolution. That's a fancy way to say, if you really sit down and study really any myth or any archetype, you will start to see the awareness bubble and rise in you in observing the myth. You'll be able to translate those lessons to your own life. A great example is that classic book, The Alchemist. I've referenced that many times. It's a perfect depiction of the hero's journey archetype. If you really study that text, you can start to derive lessons that will apply to your own life. And this causes a surge in awareness. These stories always pass through dark periods of transition, ultimately arriving at transcendent states of consciousness. Discernment leads to optimism. Once again, optimism being the gradual swelling of awareness. Discernment leads to the gradual swelling of awareness. That gradual swelling of awareness helps you extend your periphery, see a far wider reality, feel connected, be in attunement with the way things really are, with oneness. Discernment leads to oneness. And as you really are able to discern, to see the symbols, the archetypes play out in your life, to have this pattern recognition start to ignite, you start to live these archetypes, right? Fully experience them rather than avoid them and stack shame on shame or anger on anger. You start to just see everything for what it is. And in this embodiment, you have more autonomy to take action and to also joyfully admit that you created this. And this responsibility, this accountable way to live life, allows you to experience more. So it's like a biofeedback loop. I kind of feel like I'm talking in circles here because I am. One informs the other. Discernment informs awareness. Awareness informs discernment. Taking responsibility informs your actions, and your actions inform your level of responsibility. And he says all of this to say that it's all particularly relevant today because we're passing through a mythic test collectively and individually as an entire species, and this is perhaps the first time this has ever happened. There's a great leap in consciousness. We're going through a huge quantum leap, and he references this in the 55th gene key, which we'll get to in quite a while. And you know, even though this is technically just Richard Rudd's speculation, I mean, I think it's true. I feel that's true when I read that we're going through a leap in consciousness, that this is a mythic test. So you who's watching for yourself, you can ask yourself that. What do you think this time is relevant to? Do you think this is a great mythic test? Do you think it's not that dramatic? It's just life. This is just Richard Rudd's opinion, but I find it very interesting. And also, I realize this whole time I've talked, I haven't offered you one contemplation, and we've come to the end of the chapter. So, I guess the contemplation I will offer you is think of one person in your life. It can be anyone, whether that's someone you have strife with or someone you experience lots of joy with, anywhere on this emotional spectrum. Choose a person. I'm going to give you a second to do that, because part of this activity is having the person in mind before you know step 2. So pause this and really think of a person. Okay. You have that person in mind. Contemplation being, see if you can see their point of view. What's their point of view when they go to the supermarket? What do they shop for? What's their point of view in the morning? Do they make coffee or matcha, or that's just lots of water? Do they go on a run first thing when they wake up? Do they like to read? Do they instantly grab their phone and scroll? What's their point of view when it comes to dinner time? Do they like to eat dinner at 5 p.m. because they like to go to bed early? Or are they more like, let's go out at 10 and then go to the club? Do they want to cook at home or go out? Do they like big gatherings or just one-on-one connection? Those are just a few examples of how you could put yourselves in their point of view. But maybe brainstorm those various scenarios I just gave you, or think of your own. What's their point of view like in fill in the blank? In high school, on vacation, on a Tuesday afternoon at 6 p.m. And the reason for this contemplation is because as your discernment grows, your awareness grows, you start to feel connected to the wider reality. That includes the various people in your life. So the more you can proactively start to connect with other people's points of views, the more you can also start to generate that sense of oneness and connection and foster this gift of discernment. One informs the other, right? So you can either wait for discernment to flower and inform your awareness, or you can start to generate awareness by doing this activity and inform your gift of discernment. So that's just a fun little activity I thought of. That was a lot of information, I feel. That was a very heady chapter. But yeah, stay tuned next time for the 13th City of Empathy. It's titled A Great Cosmic Hub. I like the way that sounds. See you guys next time. Hey guys, thanks again for tuning in with me for this Gene Keys episode. I also just wanted to come on here and start promoting my one-to-one coaching that I offer to women and girls ages 16 to 35. If you've followed me on Instagram for a while, you might be a little bit familiar with my story. I was a model in New York City for 5 years, and in that time frame, I did quite some damage. I developed a really severe eating disorder, body dysmorphia, chronic anxiety. Oh my gosh, I couldn't even go out to dinner without thinking about how much calories, how much I'd have to overwork out in order to compensate for what I was eating. All of those issues led to quite a depression and turned into PCOS, and I also lost my menstrual cycle for over 5 years. All of this amalgamation of issues led me to soon realize that something needed to change. I went through much work. Many people helped me to get to where I am now. And I'm so thrilled to say I'm living such a more abundant life, and I don't feel zapped and drained and fear of judgment anymore like I used to. I would love to offer what I've learned through my own embodied experience, the meditative techniques that have gravitated toward me, and the own verified games that I've made up and curated to help you walk home to more of you and who you really are, so that all of these things can stop draining your energy. You know, all the constant comparison to others and to your people on Instagram, all the over-analysis about working out and what you're eating or what you look like. All of these things are not what life's about, as cheesy as it sounds. And I would love to help you come into more unity with you if you struggle with any of these things and you're a woman or girl between the ages of 16 and 35. So feel free to reach out to me if one-on-one coaching sounds resonant. You can feel free to DM me through Instagram or contact me via email, both of which will be left below in the description box. So much love and aloha to you guys, and I'll see you all in the next video.